I first got an SP-404 a couple of years ago, and while I was learning how to use it, I very quickly realized that there's a ton of different ways you can make really interesting music with it. It's just one of the most flexible samplers out there by far, in my opinion. And one of the ways I learned how to use it was just by watching other artists use it. I watched some producers use the 404, and I had no clue at all how they were doing what they were doing. So I decided to kind of study them and start to try to steal some of their tricks. One of the producers I got really into is DJ Spell, who also goes by Spell. He's truly amazing, and he uses a 404 on a lot of his material. I'll put some links of him in the description below. And then there's another set on YouTube from this guy named MkII. He's doing amazing things with his 404. So I started kind of looking more closely at what they were doing, and I quickly realized that a lot of these folks aren't using the pattern sequencer on the 404, which kind of blew my mind because I thought anything complex on the 404 came through complex pattern sequencing. And also the pattern sequencer is the harder part of the 404 to learn because there's so many different little shortcuts to sequence patterns. But I saw a lot of these artists were simply just using the sample side of the 404 and just hitting pads and somehow cueing full tracks, which I didn't even realize was really possible. So of course I looked into how much time a single sample pad could hold on the 404. And the maximum sample time per pad on the 404 Mark II is 16 minutes. 16 minutes. That totally blew my mind. I realized producers were playing full tracks loaded up on individual pads, and they would just cue one pad after the other and play an entire set. So I tried doing the same thing. I would take my phone and plug it into the 404 and record entire tracks into a single pad, and then use the effects to try to do fun things with the entire track, which is great and a lot of fun, but it wasn't super useful as far as making music for me because I didn't want to have all these crazy effects on the entire track. I thought they might be nice to just do on part of the track, right? To use the DJ effects looper on just the drums, or put the isolator on just the melody or the bass or something like that. So it occurred to me that I could actually break my music down into stems and load them up on individual pads and cue them all at the same time. And then from there, I could send the stems to different effects buses and use different effects on just certain stems. If that all sounds kind of confusing to you, don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. But it totally opened up the music making possibilities with the 404 for me. And it's a technique that I've been using a lot lately, and it's a great way to take a very basic track and turn it into something way more interesting pretty quickly and easily. And in case you're not familiar with the term stems, that just means a part of a track. So a stem might just be the drums of a track, or it might just be the harmony of the track, or it might just be the bass, or it might just be the vocals. And what I've been doing lately is just doing two stems. I just do all the drums and percussion on one stem, and then everything else on the other stem. And that works great for the 404 because we've got two effects sends. We've got bus 1 and bus 2 to send to. So you can just send one stem to each bus. It's actually pretty easy to do. I'll show you how. So what I went ahead and did here is I took one of my tracks and I broke it into two stems, one being just the drums and one being everything else. And I went ahead and loaded them into these two pads. There's different ways you can do it, but I find the easiest way is just to hit record, hit the pad, and then as the SP is plugged into my DAW, I just play the stem through it and just record directly into the pad. So here are the drums on the first pad. And then here's everything else on the second pad. And the first thing I'll do now is just link these pads together. So whenever I play one, it'll play both of them at the same time. And I do that using the pad link right there. So Shift 7. And then I've got some banks already filled up here. This one's empty. So I'll just hit those two pads, and that's it. Now they're linked. They'll both play at the same time. And then sometimes at this point, I'll actually start changing the pitch and the speed of the stems using the vinyl mode. It can be a fun way to experiment with the track. The only thing you have to remember to do is change the pitch or speed in exactly the same way on each stem. At this point, I want to send these two stems to the two different effects buses. Now they're both orange right now, which means they're both being sent to bus 1. I want to send one of them to bus 1 and bus 2. And you'll notice if I hit remain and hold it down and then hit the pad, it's going to turn white. And white means it's not being sent to bus 1 or 2. And if I hit it again, it goes back to orange, which means it's being sent back to bus 1. In order to send an effect to bus 2, I have to actually switch over to bus 2 over here and then do that again. And now it's green. Green means it's being sent to bus 2. So now I've got the two stems being sent to bus 1 and bus 2. And then at this point, I'll usually start dialing in some of the effects on bus 3 and bus 4. And to access those, you hit Shift 16, which is this effect setting. And here you can change the routing of the first two effects buses. I like to have them sent separately, which means the different effects on the different buses won't overlap each other. If you want to have them sent back to back, you can just push the encoder to change that. But what I want to do here is change bus 3 and bus 4 and load up some effects on them. So usually I'll just start scrolling through these presets and see what they sound like. And you can do that just by moving the encoder knob here to scroll through them. And then once I find one that I like, I'll start dialing in those two effects a little bit more, which you can do by scrolling over to the 3rd and 4th bus with this Control 3 knob, and then using the encoder to go down and change some of the settings. So now that I have those effects dialed in on the 3rd and 4th buses, I can start playing the track and switching back and forth between the 1st and 2 buses and using the more performance-based effects while I'm playing the track. And the other thing I really like to do a lot is use this mute bus while the track is playing. Let me show you an example of that. If you want to hear more of that track, I'll put it in the description below. And I hope you found this useful. I'll catch you next time.